Hey, college sports fans. Clemson has long been referred to as wide receiver U. We are going to preview the 2025 room as the wide receiver core tries to reclaim that title. But we are also going to look, as we've been doing with all our season previews, position by position. We will look back at the best of all time in Clemson Tiger history. I'm Bill Zimmerman, and this is the Reign Supreme All Way podcast.
I'm Daniel Shirley. This one's going to be fun. I mean, Bill, you look at these names on this list, just including Dwight Clark, who was my favorite player as a, 6, 7, 8-year-old. One of the main reasons I became a 49ers fan,
Hmm.
him and Jim Stuckey and Archie Reese all were starters on the 49ers first Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
So, but Dwight Clark was, I'm at that age of kind of learning what football is, and he was a key member of that team. But my goodness, we're going to leave somebody out of this top four who, if their family sees this video, they're going to be very upset with us, just because that's how good this group is.
Yeah, yeah. And I welcome those family members and all fans really jump in the comments. YouTube is the best place to do it. That's where these get the most visibility and add your take. I mean, and as we've talked about our method to our madness, this is going to kind of be two tiers, So it's not a 1 through 10. It's going to be a bunch of guys who are almost in that top tier, and then you got to draw a line somewhere. And usually with these, it's been four guys who have been in that top tier. So let's go ahead and get started. I mean, you mentioned Dwight Clark. I don't even have his name on the screen. That's
Right.
how good this history at the wide receiver position is. And even when we were kids, and Clemson wasn't exactly an aired out team. They were not cutting edge. They were in that Oklahoma, Nebraska, Notre Dame, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, as you mentioned at times, and so you're leaving out guys like Gary Cooper, Terrence Rulak. I mean, you're leaving out so many names, and even in the more modern era, like you don't have Jerron Brown here, Martavis Bryant, Kevin Youngblood, like those names aren't there. But we'll get started with who we do have on there. And you mentioned Dwight Clark, 76 to 78, 543 yards and three TDs, and really one of those marquee names who doesn't quite make this list. But then you look at some other guys, and I guess the furthest we go back on this is Perry Tuttle.
Right.
Uh, so there you see him. I've had that poster, as many people had, the big 24 by 36 poster of that Sports Illustrated cover. Tuttle had one of the big moments in that 22 to 15 victory over Nebraska that gave Clemson the 1981 national championship. Pardon me, on the night of January 1st. 1982 down there in Miami. What a game that was. I was very fortunate that I had some family members with an extra ticket, and on their way through Florida, they picked me up, took me down to go to the game. Just a great time, and what a way to really cement my Clemson fanhood, to see them win a national title. But I just kind of never quite become a Gators fan, a Knowles fan, and all that family history that I have in the upstate of South Carolina really tied me in. Then it gets decidedly more modern. You can connect with us on social media. That's at Clemson Kickoff. Whether you're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Facebook, you'll find us there. And to Derek Hamilton, 2001 to 2003, 2,218 yards, 15 touchdowns with 163 receptions, and just boy, he was kind of the first, or I won't say the first, but he was really prominent as sort of an electric receiver, could really become a playmaker at any given moment. You never knew when he was just going to break one off after catching the ball.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'll go back to Perry Tuttle. I would have never thought Perry Tuttle, if any time in the history of Clemson football, if you'd have done this list, wouldn't be in the top four until the last 15 years,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's that's how far things have changed during that time. Perry Tuttle would have always been on that list. Again, the Sports Illustrated cover, the play in the championship game, the plays throughout his career, the big plays. It's hard to believe he wouldn't be on that list, but that's how much things have changed.
Yeah.
And in Derek Hamilton, I mean, as you said, not the first big play receiver Clemson had ever had, but he came along in that era where they were changing the offense a little bit. He was electric, made big plays, and kind of set the era, kind of set the standard for all these guys who've come after him since the offense changed and it became more of a passing offense. But he was an electric player. There's no doubt about that.
Yep. And then you've got some steady presences on this list. Artavis Scott, Rod Gardner, Hunter Renfrow, and certainly not averse to making their own big plays. I mean, Hunter Renfrow, just a
Right.
circus catch and run against South Carolina, one of the biggest games you could ever play as a Clemson Tiger. Rod Gardner, just play after play after play, just really, really kind of an anchor of that offensive attack back then. And Artavis Scott, apparently was a luxury from 2014 to 2016. But I'll tell you what, he struck me as a freshman that first spring game. I think I mentioned this in another episode a couple of years ago. His footwork and his body balance was just exquisite, keeping his hips and shoulders over his feet enabled him to do so much. Gardner with a heck of a draft pick going into the NFL, first round pick. He was also a first team All American. That'll get you on screen on a list at any position. 2,302 yards and 12 TDs for him. Artavis Scott with 245 receptions, a career record playing for the Tigers, 2,458 yards, 19 TDs. And then Renfrow, uh, say no more, right? I think
Right.
a lot of fans would put him in the first tier. He's making a comeback with the Carolina Panthers after a year off in the NFL. We wish him well with that. We don't get to see a lot of Clemson guys line up for the team that actually played in Death Valley. The real Death Valley. I'm saying that every time in this preseason series that it comes up, the real Death Valley. 2,133 yards for Renfrow, 15 touchdowns with 186 receptions, and a big tackle in Tampa
Yeah.
in the national championship game against Alabama.
I mean, look, Hunter Renfrow, it's hard to say he's not in the top four, but we're going to see who's in the top four, and you'll understand. 2 touchdowns in back-to-back years against Alabama in the championship game. The game-winning play, maybe the most prominent play in Clemson football history of hit, that catch against Alabama. You mentioned the play against South Carolina, the catch and spin and run. Remember, you mentioned Rod Gardner. He had the catch against South Carolina too. The big catch that set up the game-winning field goal. At home that year where Clemson wins the game on the field goal. Artavis Scott had the long run against South Carolina. Well,
Yeah.
it was a pass, but it was a pass run where he steps, kind of tiptoes down the sideline to score the touchdown. So
Footwork and
those
body balance, man.
right, those
Yeah.
those three guys all were huge players for this team. I mean, remember the kickoff return for Artavis against Louisville to help
Yeah.
set up the game winning, the go ahead touchdown. So it's or to get them back in the game. That wasn't the go ahead touchdown. I'm sorry, but it was
Okay.
get them back in the game. So those three guys mean so much to this team. That's why they're on this list.
Yeah. And then one more guy, I don't want to fail to give him his flowers. Another one that people would say, how is he not on
Right.
the top tier? And it's T. Higgins. And if anybody makes a case to expand the top tier beyond a hard number of four, it could be Renfrow, it could be Higgins, 27 to 2019, 135 receptions, 2,448 yards, 27 touchdowns, including one that really got Trevor Lawrence's career off to an eye-opening start.
Yeah, I mean the game against A&M, right? And then he had the catch against Bama in the championship game that kind of sealed that game. I mean, just that crossing pattern in the back of the end zone. Look, T. Higgins. I mean, we're going to see these other guys at the top of this list, and you understand how T. Higgins just might not be in the top four. He's probably fifth, if you ask me. And if people want to debate that and say we got it wrong, that's fine. The thing about that is when you say, hey, this guy should be in, well, you got to take somebody out. And how do you take somebody out of these top four? And I know that, one of the top four, when we get to that point, his numbers aren't probably as high as some of the others, but there's a qualifier there for what he meant to this program. So look, I think T. Higgins is an all-time great player. Could you see him in the Ring of Honor, at some point? You probably could. And then you have to elevate him a little bit. But these other four who we're going to talk about, you're like, I mean, I love T. Higgins, but how do I take one of these other four out? That's the problem here with, and again, these aren't lists. These are just kind of tiers. And I would never say that T. Higgins doesn't belong in that top tier. It's just we've kind of set it at four to kind of go that to be consistent throughout the series.
There you go. Good way to put it. Yeah. And let's get into taking a peek at that final group, that top group, if you will. And we'll get it started with be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. It's free. It's the best place to catch all our episodes, and it's the best place for you to comment with your reactions. Jerry Butler. And I'd kind of made a rule, and you didn't argue against it. If they're in the Ring of Honor, they're in the top four. Like
Right.
this isn't just about you or me. It isn't just about the younger fans who never saw him play. I didn't get to see a lot of Jerry Butler. I know you did, so I'll try to get to the 2 ears and one mouth theory as soon as I get done with his numbers. Ring of Honor, first team All-American, first round draft pick, Buffalo Bills. I mean, we've heard that was a little bit of a trendsetter thing, I guess, that would continue happening later on in the world. 2,115 career receiving yards. Yeah, it's fewer yards than some of the guys that are below on this list. It's also a different era of football. 11
Yep.
TDs, 131 receptions, and just what he meant to Clemson football and what he was doing in an era that didn't really feature the gaudy numbers.
Right. And again, big play against South Carolina. If you said Hunter Renfrow's play is the most important play in Clemson history, and I probably agree with that. Well, what was the most important one before that, or most famous one before that? It's Jerry Butler's catch against South Carolina. I don't think anybody would argue against that. There've been others, but that play, Jerry Butler is kind of in the same kind of position with as far as Dwight Clark and Steve Fuller is. Yeah, they didn't win a championship, but they made Clemson football cool again,
Yeah.
right? They made Clemson football important. And you saw what Clemson football could become because of that group. They laid the foundation. That 75 to 80 group laid the foundation for what this program has become since then. And Jerry Butler is as important a player who's ever come through Clemson football.
Definitely a storied play, an important play. Another important play belongs to the next guy on this list, DeAndre Hopkins, 4th and 16 against LSU.
Yep.
The drive that really became a springboard for the Tigers to a second wave of greatness in the program. Hopkins was a first round draft pick, 3,000 yards. He cracked the mark, 3,020 yards total for the career. Sometimes it depends who you look it up with. By the way, I've got stats either from College Football Reference or from the Clemson Football Media Guide. Whenever possible, I get them from Clemson itself, of course. Tim Beret, Bob Bradley, Ross Taylor. You can't go wrong with those guys. First round, 27 TDs for DeAndre Hopkins as a tied for the career mark at Clemson, and 206, easy for me to say, receptions overall. A lot of his catches were not easy to pull off. I mean, he just had that ability to focus on the ball, rake it in however he needed to whenever the time came. And I think that was really, you talk about thunder and lightning with James Davis and CJ Spiller. He was kind of the thunder to Sammy Watkins lightning a little bit.
Yeah, he kind of gets overlooked a little bit because and we'll talk about Sammy in just a minute and how dynamic he was. But Nuke was there first, right?
Yep.
Sammy was just so dynamic when he came on board and was just electric immediately. But Nuke Hopkins, I mean, imagine those two guys being on the same field together. That's how good that offense was during that time. But Nuke was a local guy, right? I mean, and look what he did in his career. He's gone on and had a great NFL career, and I know that's not part of what we're doing here,
right.
But you can't deny what Nuke meant to this team. Even though Sammy may have gotten more of the headlines, it wasn't like a 1 and 2 option kind of a thing. This was a 1A and 1B kind of a thing. And Nuke was a great player for this program for, all the time he was there, and that's how you get on this list. I mean, 3,000 yards receiving in a college career is a lot. And, co-touchdown career leader with 27 with T. Higgins, just a great player. You hate that he wasn't part of the championship teams, but again, this was that group that set Clemson up. And I think you're right. Again, talking about most important plays, you're not going to go far down the list before you get to 4th and 16. I mean, Dabo Swinney has said it himself. This program changed that day, and it changed that day because of that play.
Yeah.
And Nuke made a great. I mean, Taj made a great throw. There's no doubt about that. But Nuke made a great catch, and Bill, not just that catch. I mean, go back and look at that game. Sammy didn't play.
Yeah.
Right, or got hurt early. I can't remember if he played or didn't play, but at all. But I think maybe he played and got hurt early. That's what it was. And they went to Nuke over and over and over again. I'll never forget the game he had against Auburn in the kickoff game,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just unstoppable. So just an all time great Tiger. There's no doubt about that.
Yep, can't argue against it, him being on this list where he is. And I think the next guy, I would say the same, Mike Williams, someone who really took a chance in finishing his career as a Clemson Tiger, and it paid off for him big time. Got a national championship, played from 2013 to 16, 2,727 yards on a team that had all kinds of targets, but he really emerged as the top one. 21 touchdowns, 177 receptions, another just absolute circus catch, dragging however many guys he had to drag into the end zone against South Carolina. But what I really remember that strength that he had for and that frame he had a way of going up in the air, shielding, using his body to shield the defender from the ball, using those broad shoulders of his, high pointing the ball. And sometimes, even if he didn't have to leap to make the catch, he was leaping to put his body in the way of the defender's hands to make sure he could come down with the ball. Tremendous focus when the ball was near him. I think he and Hopkins, probably the two of the best in college football at that particular trait.
Yeah, and the huge game against Bama in the
Yeah.
second championship game, right? And he got dinged up a little bit early in that game, and it wasn't clear if he was going to come back in, but came in and hadn't had a huge game up to that point, but then just made big catch after big catch on those last two drives. And Bill, don't forget, like you said, he broke his neck on
Yeah.
that first play in 2015, or the first drive in 2015, where he hit the goalpost
Hmm.
and missed the rest of that season. Could have just said, "Look, guys, I'm going to the NFL. I need to be careful with this." But he came back, had a great season in 2016, and did a lot of great things. So he is, maybe his numbers aren't quite as gaudy. 177 receptions. Well, Artavis Scott was on that team too, and is the all-time career receptions leader. So, just a terrific player and made huge plays for this team throughout his career.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think, there his impact can be argued. You look
Yep.
at that 2015, just the 2015 team, when it was out in Phoenix, Glendale technically, just needed one more little something to put it over the top. Could it have been Deion Kane? It sure would have been different had it been Mike Williams. Some special teams coverage might have been nice also, or defending the tight end. Anyway, those are different episodes. Let's get to the final wide receiver on this list. And again, these four are in no particular order, but we have to, go one at a time to do them justice. And it is Sammy Watkins. Again, that just electric talent. It was more than a spark. He lit the field on fire in certain ways. First team All-American, first round draft pick, season receptions leader at 101 all time at Clemson, career 100 yard games leader, with 1,500 yards, 100-yard games. I'm not going to be able to say that. Let's move on. 3,391 yards total for his career. Also the career leader. 27 touchdowns, tied for the lead all time, and 240 receptions. And
Which was
he
the career leader when he left Clemson. So
that's right.
look at all those times you just said career or season leader. It was an unbelievable career. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right. I think you could say he belongs on this list. And he was a guy who fell victim to the cliched sophomore slump in some ways. Imagine if he had been fully up to speed all 3 seasons that he was there, it would be absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, his freshman season and his junior season, if we listed best receiving seasons in Clemson history, they're both in the top five. I know
Yep.
his sophomore season again, he was, there was the suspension early, didn't play the first game, a little bit of a slower season for him. I'll never forget that game at Maryland,
Mm.
right? Where they don't win that game without Sammy Watkins. There's no doubt. And I know that he didn't win a championship, but you Bill, that stretch in the 2011 season, and we've talked a couple of times about most important games in Clemson history. I think that stretch in 2011 set this program on fire for what was to become, for what it was to become. And that was the win over Auburn, again, defending national champions. Sammy had a huge game in that game. The win over Florida State, was even better that week. And then the win at Virginia Tech, and Sammy was a huge part of all of that. But the game at Maryland, he had other big games as well, and just an unbelievable career. The thing about that is, and Dabo still talks about this. Whenever you hear Dabo say, this guy's a freshman, there's only so many Sammy Watkins who come in ready to play right away. He always brings up Sammy. Like Sammy is almost like the blueprint for if somebody's ready to play right away as a freshman. And remember, he just took the world by storm
Yeah.
as a true freshman. And he was so much fun to watch. And him again, that team with him and Nuke and Taj and CJ all on the same field is just unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, and it also kind of gave Clemson that ability to say, hey, we're going to have top talent here all the time. Like CJ Spiller had been such a draw. Everybody wanted to watch CJ Spiller every week, at least catch him in the highlights on Sports Center at the end of the night or Sunday morning before going to church and find out what he had done, right? And he was a draw. And some programs they get that one guy, and then when that guy is gone, like forget it. But Watkins kind of became that sort of 1-2 punch that you could use on the recruiting trail, along with Taj and along with some other guys that came along. But I think Watkins, there's just a difference, right? There's a separation. He certainly understood separation, but there's a certain separation of like, yeah, I want to see what that guy did. I can't forget to go back and see what he did versus, wow, I want to watch that guy and I don't even care about that team. Spiller and Watkins were two of those guys.
Well, and I misspoke there too. Spiller he didn't play with Sammy. I got my 54-year-old brain confused there. What I was thinking was the offense changed because of guys like that, right?
Yeah,
This offense changed at quarterback because of Taj Boyd. It changed at running back because of CJ Spiller. It changed at wide receiver because of guys like Sammy Watkins and Nuke Hopkins. It's just, you can't deny that. To what Mike Williams and T. Higgins became, well, Sammy Watkins and Nuke set that standard, right?
right.
What the running backs have become with Gallman and ETN. Well, CJ set that standard, and then obviously we know what Taj did at quarterback and what has come along back after him. Sammy Watkins changed this program. He's one of those guys who changed this program. That's why he's on this list.
There you go. And there are some guys on campus right now who could end up trying to push someone out of that group as well. Hey, check out our website, clemsonkickoff.com. It's got kickoff times. It's got archives of episodes and blogs, some offers. It's a simple resource for you. Well, at least push some guys out of that secondary group. And so let's get into them a little bit. The 2025 room, I think the starting lineup everyone expects to see out there will be Antonio Williams, who decided to forego the NFL draft and come back to campus for one more season, and then a pair of guys who excelled as freshmen, maybe not Sammy Watkins level, but certainly Bryant Wesco opened a lot of eyes in that second week. I believe he got on the field for 2 or 3 snaps against Georgia, but that second game against App State really was his arrival, and I would say it was an arrival of a new tier of Clemson offensive production for the last 4 or 5 seasons. And then the other guy who's expected to start is fellow freshman TJ Moore, who was a little more of a gradual ramp up. He hadn't been there for spring football as an early enrollee like Wesco was able to do. But I'll tell you what, the ceiling 2 years from now, at the end of not this season but next season, we may look back and go, "Wow, Moore was even better than Wesco." I think just about any team in America would be looking to have those three guys. I mean, Ohio State's going to have something to go alongside their star. Bama will find some guys to go alongside their star if they can find a quarterback to deliver the ball reliably to them. Same for Ohio State. They got change under center. You look at these three guys coming back with their quarterback also back. This could be a heck of a show, and we're not even getting into the guys who are going to rotate in the lineup through with them.
Yeah, and look, I know there's a little bit of question at running back this year, more so than there has been the last 3 or 4 years. We knew Will Shipley and Phil Maffa were going to be the main running back or duo during their time. So, but the past couple of years, we didn't know about wide receiver.
Yeah,
This year, it's kind of flipped. Of you just mentioned those three guys. Remember, Antonio got hurt, and then Tyler Brown took over,
right.
and then Antonio came back, and Tyler Brown got hurt. Well, Tyler Brown's back. And I mean, and we saw what Wesco and TJ Moore became last year. And you have to wonder, why weren't they on the field against Georgia?
Yeah,
What was going on in that first game? But so look at those four and all different kind of guys, right? They're different body types. And I mean, Bryant and Wesco just both had really, really good freshman seasons.
Brian,
I,
Wesco and Moore.
I mean, what did I say?
Yeah,
Wesco and Moore. I'm sorry. Wesco and Moore both had really, really good freshman seasons,
yeah,
um, but they both can get better. Antonio Williams had a terrific season last year. Tyler Brown's healthy now, and then we haven't even talked about Tristan Smith, who transfers in and gives them a different body type that they haven't really had since T. Higgins, right? That
yeah.
that longer can throw it up and go get it kind of a body type that Bill, that was such an important part of this offense for so long. I remember vividly during the draft process, Deshaun Watson getting dinged for just quote throwing it up. Well, there's a reason he threw it up. It's because he had guys who could go get it.
Yeah.
And that was a part of this offense that they haven't had in recent years. And we'll see if Tristan Smith can help them with that. But, Cole Turner is still around. Juju Preston is now a true freshman. And what will he become after these two guys, after Moore and Wesco for last year? So
Yeah.
it just feels like this is what we got used to at wide receiver for Clemson.
Yeah.
That's been missing the past. It started to come back last year, right? But it was missing for 2 or 3 years before that.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And I finally, yeah, for the first time in a while, I look at, going into week one, I look at options, 4, 5, and 6, and I'm like, well, we could start those guys and be pretty good.
Right.
Like it's been a while since we could say that for sure. And there were some injuries. There were some guys who just didn't develop the way that you had expected. Uh, but when you look at that group of 6 guys that we've been talking about, I mean, Tristan Smith just granted he wasn't working against the ones, playing cornerback, but sure looked the part. I know it's a spring game. I know we've seen guys come through and look the part in the spring game and never make an impact. But I think a lot of those guys typically don't have the physique that you're looking for, and Tristan Smith certainly has that. Tyler Brown, very eager to see how he's going to add to the room right now. I mean, you can kind of put Antonio Williams wherever you want because I think last year they started to see, hey, Wesco and Moore are comfortable outside. Let's get Williams in the slot more often than you might otherwise consider doing that. Now you can kind of work things a little different because boy, Tyler Brown is that guy who can kind of get find the seams over the middle and especially with an offensive line that last year seemed to take a step toward making the middle of the field more of an option. Klubnik doesn't exactly tower back there, so you got to have some lanes to work with, and they can provide that. And then Cole Turner, a burner on the outside, like he's put up some big plays in the past. He's had some
Yeah, he
nice
has.
games. He's been fighting that injury bug a little bit too, so let's see him get healthy. But I've got a lot of faith in Cole Turner to be a contributor. If he had to spot start, I would feel good about that. If there was a certain way that they want him to fill a role that they don't want the other guys have to break out and do, I think he could do that. And hey, still got a Sweeney. You can still Sweeney at the other team in a blowout. So we'll see how things go. Juju Preston, you mentioned, I think he's going to be a little bit more of a project.
Sure.
There were some he got caught up in kind of a coaching change that became a high school transfer for him and didn't play a lot last year. So you would think he's going to have fresh legs at the very least, but there may be a little bit of rust to shake off. He's not a tall target, so he's going to have to really learn the nuances of the game. But I'm looking forward to seeing him once the day is right for that, and once he's adequately prepared to meet the moment. You
But the key to that, Bill, is they don't need him to play right away.
right.
They don't need Cole Turner to be a huge contributor, right? They can fill those slots in where, for a couple of years there, they would have needed both of those guys. Right now, they don't have to have them be huge contributors to have success.
Yeah, and then let's bring this up too. We haven't talked position coaches a ton during these previews. We do have a little bit of time. I'll get into it on this one because once again, now we're talking 3 years in a row. I hope the threes were visible there. I don't don't always get my hand in the frame. 3 years in a row that Tyler Grisham has brought freshmen onto the field because he did need to, and he's made them very, very productive. You look at Antonio Williams 3 years ago. You look at Tyler Brown 2 years ago. You look at Wesco and Moore last season. This is a guy who was on the hot seat, and he was a little bit on the lukewarm seat for me, and I think he was a little somewhere between lukewarm and hot for you at times. Grisham has proven himself. I mean, Grisham has really come of age, and maybe that's pairing up with Garrett Riley. Maybe that's uh, getting quarterback getting quarterback play that helps his receivers a little more. But there were other ways to ding that receiver group, including some of the blocking downfield that just wasn't up to par what we had seen, even from some of the greats on that list that we were just looking at. I think Grisham has figured it out. He's doing well with recruiting. Uh, they lost Marquise Henderson to some off-field issues. That would have been potentially a guy who could have stepped up and been that next Antonio Williams, that next Tyler Brown, that next TJ Moore. So he's getting the job done, and I think it's time. I've been critical of him, so I wanted to take a moment and say, hey, here's a guy who has turned things around.
Well, and it also feels, Bill, too, didn't it feel like the dropsies kind of went away last year? I mean, it
Yeah,
wasn't nearly the storyline last year as it was the previous couple of years, where it felt like catch the ball, right? I mean, you've got one job and it's to catch the ball. How many times did it feel like they had something going and then a guy would drop a pass
yeah.
and it just kill the momentum of the drive? So I think all of that is starting to trend in the right direction. Is it totally clear? I don't know that totally clear,
Right.
but they are trending in the right direction at wide receiver, and I don't think anybody would argue against that.
No, and that's the best thing about this too. There is room for improvement here. We'll talk in the quarterback episode about where Klubnik needs to improve, and all of these guys can refine their game. But we've seen Wesco, reports about Moore, both adding the right kind of muscle to their bodies. Obviously, Antonio Williams was able to do that. We saw that last year. Hopefully, Tyler Brown has been able to uh, work on his conditioning as well during the time he had off. And there are certain things you can do. There are certain things you can't do when you're rehabbing from injury. Tristan Smith comes in, with several years under his belt, so he looks. Knock on wood, he can be a plug and play kind of guy, and you're not asking for 50, 60 snaps out of him. So he's got some time to add polish to his game, to elevate it to power forward level compared to Southeast Missouri. coming in, and then Cole Turner again. You hope that that's another guy. You hope that he and Tyler Brown have been kind of on that Troy Stellato plan, and I'll give Stellato compliments for this again, even though he's transferred out. When Stellato was hurt for a couple of years, you thought, oh my gosh, that's going to set him back so far. But when they called upon him and he was healthy, he obviously had been paying attention. He knew where to be. He knew how to conduct himself. He knew how to execute. And that's what those two guys have to do now this year, coming back from injury. And that's what Tristan Smith, needs to have imparted on him as well as a newcomer. So, and again, coaching, so we'll give Grisham credit for that. Do you have any obvious, I mean, to me, if this group's going to elevate, it's just a little bit of all the details. It's a little bit of all the
Right.
nuances and adding those things. But do you have any other things that you would point out, like, hey, got to work on this. Here's something that was missing.
Well, if it does feel like there's incremental improvement for each of those guys, right? I think getting Tyler Brown back is going to be huge. Bill, I think TJ Moore is going to take a huge step this year.
I do too.
I really do. I really believe, kind of as you said, the ceiling's probably higher for him than some of these other guys. And it feels like he's ready to just take off. A year under his belt, a year in the nutrition, a year with the strength and conditioning, all of that stuff. Again, he came in late last year, not late, but he wasn't an early signing. We
Right.
almost ding guys for not being an early signee now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they almost get kind of left behind that freshman year. Look, I love Wesco a lot. I think Wesco has got the skills, and the route running from Wesco is just off the charts.
Yeah.
He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he always seems like he's open no matter what. But
Right.
I think TJ Moore is going to take a huge step. Again, health wise is always a big part of this. We know that for believe me, we've seen that with Clemson receivers for several years. If he stays healthy, I think he's going to have a big time year for this team.
I do as well. I think it's going to be very exciting to watch this group. I think it has the potential to feel a lot like that 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018 cluster of players, 2019, where Klubnik's got options. He can put the ball wherever the defense leaves things off. So find the open guy and be
Yes.
prepared to know. Obviously, hopefully, your first option is going to be that open guy. So have that preparation, but there's going to be options. You can go through all your check downs and find a way to gain positive yards through the air, and that will help in a year where there's no clear running back option. So look, we are having a ton of fun doing these. That was one of the more fun episodes, and I think possibly we spent the most time on this year's preview of any
Yeah.
coming into date. So stay with us. We've still got positions that we're working to get posted here. And the off season is becoming the preseason. The preseason is almost the season. Can't wait for week one. Can't wait to see those wide receivers take on a revamped LSU backfield. So until our next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.